Hello, this is Crystal Racing here to discuss the possibility of Kimi Raikkonen returning to Ferrari for a third stint in 2020. Of course, this is in response to rumours that Sebastian Vettel may be retiring at the end of this season, Charles Leclerc potentially wanting to leave Ferrari, and of course another rumour that Nico Hulkenberg could be replacing Pierre Gasly at Red Bull for next season. So, for the first rumour, Sebastian Vettel retiring at the end of this season. Now, this will probably only happen if Ferrari somehow, by mother of all miracles, somehow sort out their car and get their car up to a point where it can actually compete for race wins regularly and even get back into the championship fight. Even though Sebastian Vettel is 55 points behind in the Drivers' Championship, you never know what could happen between Lewis Hamilton and Bottas. If Bottas is able to maintain his early season form and really challenge Hamilton for the championship, those two might well hit each other at next weekend's Canadian Grand Prix. For all we know, those two could be out. Sebastian Vettel wins the race. And of course, you've got to remember, Ferrari do have their new updated engine and their car is faster down the straight, so they should be able to beat Red Bull. And if that happens, then Sebastian Vettel is 30 points behind Lewis Hamilton and the championship fight is very much back on. And at that point, Mercedes are going to have a hard time dealing with Hamilton and Bottas if that happens. But of course, as back to the Kimi Raikkonen, could he go to Ferrari next season thing? Well, even if Sebastian Vettel doesn't fight for the championship, he could well retire if Charles Leclerc suddenly starts improving his pace and becomes more consistent. If Charles Leclerc gives Sebastian Vettel more stick as this season goes on, it could well be Vettel could be announcing his retirement after the end of this season, and potentially the Ferrari scrambling for a new driver. As rumoured, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Daniel Ricciardo, and quite ridiculously, Romain Grosjean have all been rumoured as replacements for Sebastian Vettel if that happens. But of course, with the amount of management change and upheaval at Maranello, with a new team principal in Matteo Binotto, a new head management at Fiat, Chrysler, and of course at Exor, with after the death of Sergio Marchionne, with Louis Camilleri and John Alcan taking over his role, it is possible Kimi Raikkonen might well be the go-to man for Scuderia Ferrari due to the amount of change they've had, and it could well be a temporary return to familiarity for the team due to the fact that right now, I mean, could they really take on a new driver like Perez or Magnussen for next season in what would be yet another change? It's kind of, Ferrari are well known for being very conservative in the way they operate. They like to know what they're doing. They like to stick to a familiar pattern, a familiar routine, and it could well be Kimi Raikkonen could be a favourite to go back to Ferrari. And of course, for the next rumour, Charles Leclerc stepping down at the end of this season. Now, as for the Sebastian Vettel rumour, that was started by Joe Seymour, but this Charles Leclerc rumour was started by some journalists from the Italian media. And of course, as ever with the Italian media, you should always take their words with a pinch of salt. And I am definitely taking this with a pinch of salt. Why on earth would Ferrari want to get rid of Charles Leclerc after 1 year? I mean, okay, maybe, possibly they could demote him back to the Alfa Romeo team if he struggles for the rest of this season and make Vettel and Raikkonen teammates again, especially if they want to try and, encourage Sebastian Vettel to stay on a bit longer than his contract is at currently, which ends in 2020, and potentially make him go on until at least 2022. Well, to be honest, the likelihood of Charles Leclerc leaving Ferrari at the end of this season just because of his shenanigans at Monaco are very slim. But you never know. If Charles Leclerc keeps, getting hot-headed and getting frustrated by Ferrari's mistakes and keeps getting angry about the fact that he's been given team orders so early on in his career, you never know. Don't rule it out. And as for Nico Hulkenberg, I can't see him going to Red Bull. If Pierre Gasly does carry on struggling, though, I think Danny Kvyat is probably the favourite to take his seat at Red Bull because, quite frankly, with the amount of money Dietrich Mateschitz and Herbert Markov throw at the junior programme, there is no way they're going to take on what will be a 32-year-old Nico Hulkenberg to be Max Verstappen's teammate. And, frankly, at this point, Hulkenberg isn't really going to improve. I don't think he's actually that better than Gasly or Danny Kvyat. I'm just saying that, he still has no podiums to his name. He's shown a lot of speed and promise throughout his decade of F1 racing, but frankly, he's just, whenever he's had a chance to do well, like 2012 Brazil, where he spun and crashed into Lewis Hamilton, and then, of course, the two Baku races in 2017 and 2018, when there was a podium that was there for the taking, but then he crashed out of the race. I really cannot see this happening. And I just want to say one more thing. Yes, there were a lot of people getting angry with John Watson about his comments against Lewis Hamilton. Now, I've got to say John Watson really was a prick for calling Lewis Hamilton pathetic, but I think it was absolutely ridiculous the way people said, do not go and watch his Beyond the Grid podcast video with the Formula 1 YouTube channel. That was just over the top, and really, it's getting to the point where people are taking things way too personally and politicising it, other people's actions in the real world because of the fact that, we're living in an age where, the private is becoming political, or the personal is the political, as the phrase goes, where, as much as it is important that people look after their mental health and they ensure that they don't, become mentally screwed up, some people need to just, calm down and and realise some things are very much personal between other people. This is, as bad as what John Watson said, we really need to realise, if you go and listen to that podcast, you will realise John Watson was actually quite nice to Lewis Hamilton, saying that, his racing is very clean and it's, his racing, and, he's someone he could trust if he was racing right now. And, John Watson had a lot of wise things to say in his podcast. So, some people really need to get a grip of themselves. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to Crystal Racing, and I'll see you again.